Everyone, I am Pranav of Faculty of Law and Governance, and I am here to teach BA LLB, BCom LLB, and BBA LLB's subject, that is jurisprudence. And in that paper, I am going to deal with the first session, that is state and the concept of a state with the relationship of law. So in Chisholm versus Georgia, in this case, United States Supreme Court defined state as a body of free persons united for the common benefit to enjoy peaceably what is their own and to do justice to others. Now, if you look at this definition, it is a body. The state is a body of free persons. So to know what is state, firstly you have to know what is free person and what is person. United for common benefit. So what about if there is particular benefit to one? So if at all certain people come together for a particular benefit, that would not amount to common benefit. To enjoy peaceably, not violently, peaceably, what is their own, so to speak, resource, their own identity, their own creation, and to do justice to others. To do justice to others, not to themselves. Is it the right definition of state? There can be many criticism of this definition of state. So what could be a correct definition of state? It is a matter of contention. It is a bone of contention, fighting between various philosophers in the past. Various people has defined various meaning of state. One of them is Sir John Almond. Sir John Almond defines state as an association of human beings established for the attainment of certain ends by certain means. The ends being defense against external enemies and the maintenance of peaceable and orderly relationship within the community itself. So if you look at this definition of Salomon, here Salomon defines state without a fixed territory. A nomadic tribe, for example, is perfectly possible, and it may be organized for the fulfillment of the essential functions of government. Such a position is, however, rare. Salomon therefore defines the territorial state as a society of men established for the maintenance of order and justice within a determined territory by way of force. So the important element here is the force. We will see to it later. Parker criticizes the definition of state adopted by Salomon. In the first place, he says that if enforcement of justice against external and internal enemies can be taken as the distinguished character of state, it cannot be differentiated from other social associations such as the church, clubs and universities, joint stock companies, which also enforce justice with their own power. In the second place, Parker observes that when Salomon conceived of war as an enforcement of justice by one state against an offending state, the difficulty arises that every state regards its own cause as just. In the third place, according to Parker, Salomon excludes altogether the ethical purpose of the state when he conceives of it as essentially concerned with the enforcement of justice. So, with all of this, now we can define a state. A state is a political society. It is an organization of persons in a given territory united for the common object of protecting the people in the territory from aggression by their fellows and outsiders. When aggression by their fellows comes, it's called internal disturbance. When aggression by outsiders follows, we call it a war or certain unfriendly relationship with the neighboring countries or whatsoever. And of ideally securing to the people the conveniences that facilitate a decent living for their welfare. Thus, a state is a community of considerable number of persons occupying a territory permanently, independent of external control, and have an organized government to which habitual obedience is rendered by the inhabitants within its jurisdiction. With this definition, we can essentially create certain characteristics or elements of the state. Those elements would be population. So if there is a state, there must be population. Territory. There must be territory because obviously a state enjoys power over certain geographical area of the planet Earth. So that certain area would be territory. As per Lasky, the territories of a state are the regions over which it can exercise sovereignty. The third most important part is government. So government is a kind of sovereign which tells us what is the law, why there is a law, and there is this concept of legitimacy and validity has been attached with the concept of government. So a government is a sovereign. So the fifth, so the last and the most essential element of a state is sovereignty. Sovereignty means self-dependent, means independent of others, means if I have to make something or if I have to create something, that decision would essentially be mine, and I do not have to depend upon the notions or the ideas of you, right? So this is sovereignty. With this we come to the genesis of state. So how a state comes into existence. So the first theory regarding the genesis or the origin of a state is force theory. So what is this force theory? Like ancient times, the strong subjugates or the preys over the weak. So once a strong person or a group of strong persons subjugates over the weaker section of the persons, those strong persons will make a society. They will snatch away the territory. They will snatch away the sovereignty. They will snatch away the population. They will control and administrate the function of the weaker section of society. To give you an example, let's assume when Babur attacked India and overthrown Lodi dynasty. So at that time, Babur was stronger than Lodi dynasty in terms of in terms of war power, in terms of strength. So Babur overthrows Lodi and establish a society, establish a state. That type of state can be said to be created by the use of force. Hence, their genesis would be fall within the ambit of force theory. Now, second theory is divine theory. So what is this divine theory? As we know that this divine theory has the element of God. So this theory believes that state is a creation of God. God himself, notice the term himself, not herself. God himself created the state, because it is only powerful people who can create a state. And as per Manu explains that Brahmins created the king to protect the people of all varnas and ashrams devoted to their duties. Now Brahman. So if you look at Manu, it is Brahmins who have created kings. So without Brahmins there cannot be kings. And if you look to the Greek tradition, there is this Plato. Plato calls there must be a philosopher's king, or the king must be philosopher. So what does this mean? This means that it is all about concept of power. How will you achieve power? And it is all about the interest. And if you are in power, your interest will get defined in law, and your interest will get catered by the law. So it wasn't only in India that sages were given certain kind of importance. Even the Greeks has attributed a divine origin to this state. It was to the Greeks that an association of sages who gave the law. The Roman legend of foundations of Rome, while not omitting religion, propounded that people and king created the state. The blessings of the gods followed. Under Muslim law, also king was regarded as a shadow of God. Now the next theory is matriarchal theory. The matriarchal theory is propounded by anthropologists like MacLennan and Morgan, wherein they state that the state is originated not in family but in horde. Horde was an unorganized tribe in which sexual relations without any matrimonial intentions were common. So in course of time, the horde left this practice and followed group of marriages, and gradually they practiced polyandry. This institution of polyandry led to the establishment of matriarchal family. In the matriarchal family, relationship was traced through the female line. Among some tribes, relationship is recognized through females and not through males, and even succession to property is through female line. Now, Maine has criticized this form of theory, and he says that this theory is absolutely unmaintainable because it is extremely improbable. As regards polyandry, he argues that it is an abnormal institution of temporary character because of the low number of females. Maine accepts that patriarchal theory as a more probable than the matriarchal theory. Like I said earlier, even when it comes to the creation of state in the divine theory, God, he himself, not she herself, alright, not she herself, it is he himself created the state. Obviously, the next theory would be the patriarchal theory. So patriarchal theory is given by Aristotle, who said that state began with the most natural group and with the family where the head is father. Henry Maine incorporated this idea in his theory of state. According to him, the state is an aggregation of families. So in earlier time, the lowest element of the state is family, and after family comes society, and this society in political sense would become a state. But now when you compare it with today's political order, you would see that it is individual who is considered to the last element in a society, and this individual can remain individual and also form a state. This is one line of thinking, and the other line of thinking, the individual, afterwards family, afterwards society, and society, political sense, would become state. After this comes the social contract theory. In social contract theory, the assumption is that group of people came together and surrendered their rights to the state. In social contract theory, there are three people: Hobbes, Locke, Rousseau. Hobbes, in his book Leviathan, which means supremely powerful, in Leviathan says that the people must come together and surrender their rights to a state, and this surrender must not be qualified but absolute. This theory made state an absolute power, and an absolute state can get turned into an arbitrary state in whims, in just like a ziffy. After Hobbes comes Locke, and Locke argues that it is not the absolute surrender of rights which makes state, but a qualified surrender of rights which makes state. And this qualified surrender of rights include every right surrendered to the state except three rights: life, liberty, and property. And this theory has been followed by Rousseau. And Rousseau regards that a state of nature is an idyllic felicity. In course of time, man's natural liberty had to be substituted by a higher and safer liberty. So there is a great progress from this state of nature to a contractual society, where natural liberty got substituted by civil liberty. This civilness is a creation of law, is a creation of civilization. So according to social contract theory, the state is the result of an agreement between the people to unite together at the first instance, and then an agreement between the people and the ruler by which the authority and power was given to the ruler. Now with this we come to the relationship of law and state. So there are three relationships with law and state. Firstly, whether a state must be superior and law must be inferior. Secondly, law must be superior and state is inferior. And thirdly, law and state are same. So in first part, wherein the assumption is that state is superior to law and makes it, we can see it today even. A government got elected through the process of election and comes into power and makes any law. So when a government makes a law, law comes into existence only when a government makes a law. So as you can see here, state is superior to law and makes it. Now other conception is that law is superior to state and makes it. This is a conception of rule of law, wherein state can be formed but it cannot goes beyond the atmosphere of law. A state cannot survive beyond the atmosphere of law. Third is law and state are same, and this theory is propounded by Mr. Hans Kelsen. Mr. Hans Kelsen says there cannot be any law without a state, there cannot be any state without law. With this we come to the conclusion of our first session, that is the concept of state and its relationship with law and how states and law perform together. Thank you.